All right, babies, we're good. We're good to go. Let's do this. Uh, Amazing, right? Even interviews, basically, they're describing what an interview is. I'd imagine like we understand shit, but like, why the fuck not? The purpose of an interview is a systematic approach designed to elicit business analysis information from a person or group of people by talking to the interviewees, asking relevant questions, and documenting the responses. An interview can also be used for established relationships and building trust between business analysts and stakeholders in order to increase stakeholder involvement or build support for a proposed solution, right? An interview is basically you sit with somebody, ask them questions relevant to what the fuck you want to know about it, around it. The description. The interview is a common technique for eliciting requirements. It involves direct communication with individuals or groups of people who are who are part of an initiative, my bad. In an interview, the interviewer directs questions to stakeholders in order to obtain information. One-on-one interviews are the most common in a group interview with more than one interviewee in attendance. The interviewer is careful to elicit responses from each participant. The reason most interviews are one-on-one, or maybe like, I don't know, I think after one-on-two or one-on-three, it becomes either a brainstorming session or it jumps to it jumps to a focus group. The reason for that is because you can't help people who start having conversations with each other, so it's no longer direct information from somebody. It starts becoming a bit more. In an interview, the interviewer directs questions to stakeholders, blah, 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 blah. There are two basic types of interviews: structured interview, unstructured interview, in which the interviewer has a predefined set of questions. That's the structured. And unstructured, I think, is the one interviewer does not have predetermined format and order of questions. Questions may vary based on interviewer responses and interactions. So open-ended questions and then guided, right? There are ones where like, tell me what you think of this, and like, give me a direct answer. And there are others where people kind of like have a conversation and then figure something out. And I think this technique is applied a lot in user experiences and UX approach, because when you're trying to interact with somebody, what you end up doing is you end up having unstructured interviews, because you kind of like want to know what's going on in their heads instead of asking them questions and leading them on. In the process of product research and UX, what we're doing is we're trying to figure out what people are thinking about, so we build something that caters to them, not the other way around. So successful interviewing depends on factors such as level of understanding of the domain by the interviewer, experience of the interviewer by conducting interviews, skill of the interviewer in documenting discussions, readiness of the interviewee to provide the relevant information and the interviewer to conduct the interview, degree of clarity in the interviewer's mind about goals of the interview, and rapport of the interviewer with the interviewee. So here we're saying like, okay, you have to, I'm interviewing you, and then I have to keep in mind like if you understand something or not. Do you have experience as an interviewer or conducting an interview? And that is a skill, by the way. That's why human resources is a thing. And there's also like the skill of the interviewer in documenting the discussions. Like, sometimes we write what we think we're hearing instead of that creates biases. And readiness for the person you're interviewing to provide the relevant information, basically. And then basically the clarity between them and the goals of the interview and the rapport. Like, do you trust me to give me the right answers, or are you just gonna like tell me what you think I need to hear so that you can kind of like continue with your day, right? When planning interviews, business analysts consider the overall purpose of performing a set of interviews based on a business need. Yeah, like, why are we interviewing, right? That's basically one of the first things that we kind of like get to. And the individual goals for each interview based on what the interviewee can provide. That's the goals. The goals are to be clearly expressed and communicated to each interviewee. It makes sense. Oh, I'm interviewing you for a job position. Yeah, it makes sense. Because you kind of like want that point of focus, I guess, right? Potential interviewees, like, these are the elements, right? Like, there's a goal, there's one that you will interview, there are the questions, and ultimately there are the logistics, the interview flow, the interview follow-up, and ultimately, basically, the follow-up is after the interview is done. Potential interviewees are identified with the help of a project manager, project sponsors, or other stakeholders based on the goals of the interview. What do you want, right? Like, why are you considering interviews overall? Interview questions are designed according to the question goals, such as collecting data, research stakeholders' view of the change of the proposed solution, developing a proposed solution, or building rapport with support for the proposed solution of the interviewee. Open-ended questions are used to elicit a dialogue or series of steps and cannot be answered in a yes or no fashion. Open-ended questions are a good tool to allow the interviewee to provide information which the interviewer may be aware. Okay. Closed questions are used to elicit a single response, such as a yes or no or specific number. I kind of like discussed that 5 seconds ago, right? Closed questions can be used to clarify or confirm previous answers. Interview questions are often organized based on the priority and significance. Examples of questions order include general to specific, start to finish, detailed to summary. Like there are strategies in this shit, man. There are flows that you kind of like work with. Questions can also be organized based on factors such as interviewee level of knowledge and the subject of the interview. If you're interviewing a junior versus if you're interviewing a senior, right? Interview questions may be customized when the purpose of the interview is to gather information that is unique to the perspective of the interviewee. Standardized questions may be used when the interview results will be summarized and analyzed, such as when interview results are tallied using the check sheet. Interview questions could be standardized questions, right? Like, I don't know, it feels like, the initial interview is kind of like, the basics, like who are you? Or like, why the fuck would we talk to you? And then if you pass that, you go through, I don't know. Interview questions can be compiled in an interview guide, which includes the interview questions, proposed timing, follow-up questions. This will all be based on the interview type, according to the interview goals, mode of communication, and duration. The interview guide can be a document where the interviewee's response are easily recorded. The interview guide could identify which interview questions may be omitted based upon time constraints. Regarding logistics, ensuring successful interview requires attention to logistics that include the location of the interview, whether or not to record the interview, whether or not to send questions to the interviewees in advance. Sending questions in advance is advisable only when interviewee needs to be collecting information in relative. Whether interview results would be considered confidential or not, how the results will be summarized to avoid identifying individual interviewees. About the interview flow, opening the interview includes describing the purpose of the interview, including why interviewee's time is needed, confirming the interviewee's roles and addressing any initial concerns raised by the interviewees, and explaining how information from the interview will be recorded and shared with the interviewees and other stakeholders during the project. During the interview, right, like you're kind of like telling them we're doing this for this reason and this is how we're going to be doing it and this is the end result. This is what we'll do with the end result, sorry. During the interview, the interviewer maintains focus on the established goals and predefined questions and adapts based on the information provided and nonverbal communication from the interviewees. Like you're not only noticing to what they say, how they're interacting with it. Considers both the willingness of the interviewees to participate and the ismu. And in the interview to provide the required information, considers the several meetings that might be required to conduct the entire interview. Maybe sometimes you need more than one meeting, right? Some topics are fucking intense. Manages concerns raised by the interviewees by addressing them during the interview or documenting them for follow-up. Particles have listening to confirm what the interviewer has said. Practices active listening to confirm the interview what the interviewer has said. And takes written notes on records the interview has takes written notes on record or records the interview as appropriate. Is it still too early? I can't focus. Or is this just too bleh? Closing the interview includes asking interviewees the areas that may have been overlooked in the session, providing contact information and interviewees follow up additional information after the meeting is as needed, summarizing the session, outlining the process of how the interview results will be used, and thanking the interviewees for their time. Interview follow-up, it's important for the interviewer to organize the information and confirm results with the interviewees as soon as possible after the interview. Sharing the information that has learned allows the interviewees to point out any missed or incorrectly recorded items. Usage considerations encourages participation by and establishes rapport with stakeholders. Simple, direct technique that can be used in a variety of situations, allows the interviewer and participant to have full discussions and explanations of the questions and answers, enables observations of nonverbal behavior. The interviewer can ask follow-up probing questions to confirm their own understanding, maintains focus through the use of clear objectives and interview that are agreed upon by participants and can be met in a time allotted, allows interviewees to express opinions in private and they may be reluctant to express in public. Right, so like, establishes trust with the people that you're kind of like connecting with. It kind of like builds a certain relationship. It's simple, it's direct, it's asking questions and getting answers. Allows for that back and forth, right? Like for discussions. It enables like, seeing things because it's one-on-one, right? You're not confined by the group or whatever, or you're not, the constraints, inhibitions, I guess, are a bit looser when like you're in private or when you build trust with somebody, they kind of like relax, chill or something. I don't know. Seem like straightforward stuff. Limitations or significant time is required to plan and conduct interviews. Requires considerable commitment or involvement of the participants. It is exhausting mentally, by the way. Like talking to many people about many things, it's exhausting and it's very hard. Or at the very least, it requires energy for you to see when you're kind of like slipping, because like talking to people, especially when you're kind of like extracting information, it kind of requires a certain like, I want to say nonchalant or calm or just kind of like a demeanor that's a bit more intense, or like that intense is a demeanor that's a bit more lacking in emotions, because that's basically where your energy sways. Training is required to conduct effective interviews. Of course, it's a skill set. Based on the level of clarity provided during an interview, the resulting documentation may be subject to the interviewer's interpretation. Yes, that's the whole point, right? Like, that's the thing that we need to keep an eye on. Then there's a risk of unintentionally leading the interviewee. That's why you practice and you learn and you kind of like, rewatch interviews and shit like this. There it is. Our next video is item tracking.